It is 1800 hours, 6 p.m. I'm going to call this workshop to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Councilman Mike Hammer. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah. Madam Jones.
Mayor Medina.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Jaffe.
Present.
Councilman Johnson is running late. Councilman,
He's through the door.
Councilman Hammer.
Present.
And Councilman Langevin is absent. Ms. Smith. Present. And Mr. Morton.
Present.
Madam, would you like to publicly state why Councilman Langevin's not present?
From what I just heard, he is having his baby.
Congratulations, Councilman Langevin. Way to go. Not that you're doing much of anything, just make sure that you're there supporting your wife, buddy. All right. Number one item under business is our discussion of planning and strategic goals for this fiscal year 2026 and 2027. Mr. Morton, take it away.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. It's a good start. So why are we here tonight? Need my glasses and I can tell you why we're here. Uh-oh. Oh, there they are. So last year, I think because of a lot of changes in personnel at the city and different things, me coming so late, we got a late start to the budget. And I know it wasn't an ideal scenario for everybody. And so if you recall, what we committed to doing was starting the budget process earlier, being more open from the start. Once things tend to kick off, I like to say the train's already left the station. So this is really an attempt before any philosophies are really formed, before any approaches, before a single number's put on a page, before a single decimal place is aligned by our wonderful finance staff. We just want to have a conversation, want to invite you to the conversation. We want to invite the community to the conversation. That's what's important. That's what we keep hearing. So this is all about being transparent. You're not going to see numbers tonight. We're not going to be asking you to make any decisions tonight. This is really starting what I hope is a continual conversation as we develop this budget process. And we're going to use all the avenues we have. I'll use some of the city manager coffee outreaches to engage the community. I know we'll have workshops. We'll have opportunities to hear and to listen. And I'm going to share real quick why I think that's so important. If we can roll that first slide, it'd be fantastic. Or do I have the clicker? I've got the clicker. Look at that. So why are we here tonight? This is an engagement strategy above everything else. A budget's not just a financial document. It's not just numbers. And I think I said this during my interview. You can look at that budget and tell what this community cares about or what they say they care about, right? We can say one thing. If it's not reflected in the budget, then maybe we don't care about it as much as we thought. So it's a strategy. It's a communication device. We're talking to anyone who looks. The first place I look when I look at a city is look at the budget. What are they investing in? What's their priorities? What do they have going on? It'll tell you what's happening. But it's a communication device that's meant to involve the citizens of our community in helping us with the difficult choices of allocating limited resources to meet unlimited needs. Now, Palm Bay is not unique in that situation. I can go to any city, any county, any special purpose district, any government or political subdivision, and the chances are they have more needs and more things on their books than they're going to ever have money for. So I'm not saying that unique to Palm Bay. We're going to have more needs and we're going to have resources. That's why this conversation is important. How do we truly prioritize? Because when everything's important, nothing is. When everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So how are we going to prioritize? Tonight we're going to start the conversation about a path forward, and it's about using education, not as a pejorative. We want to invite people into this conversation. We want to engage at every level, at every opportunity, to make sure we understand what the community wants, what they want to prioritize, that we have honest conversations about the trade-offs that will be required in some cases, all for the goal of achieving a financially feasible and I believe attainable set of goals for the fiscal year 2027 that we're beginning to plan for. So our why, and you'll notice here, part of what was driven was that Doge guide. I know I sent that to you. I sent it to staff. We looked at that. That was published by the state of Florida, How to Doge Yourself. So we read that. We read it over and over again. Brian, Jason, and I in many meetings talked about that. How do we implement that? What does that look like? And our why, you'll hear finance staff talk about that, is to create a financially resilient city, city of Palm Bay. It's more than just words on a page. The city should be financially resilient. And I know that's your guys' heart, is to get this city to a place it's never been before in terms of taking care of our needs, our priorities, and building community around that. And of course, it's where collaborative engagement between all of our stakeholders is going to hopefully result in three things: a balanced budget, revitalized and a renewed focus on core infrastructure, and obviously the citizens demand robust public services from us. They come to expect and demand that we're going to deliver certain services to the community. And to do that, it's going to require an unvarnished look at our budget, at our capabilities, what should and shouldn't, we be doing. It's going to rely around a strategic capital plan. Again, how do we prioritize? What is that strategy? Where does it get us where we need to be? We're not going to get there in 1 year. We might not get there in 5 years. But are we setting the pieces in place to get to our ultimate destination? Are we charting the right course? And of course, for me, it's always about measurable results whenever and wherever possible, whether they're key performance indicators, that's that KPI, or whether it's general performance standards. Now, we have our quantitative measures. Those are usually easier to get our head around: how many miles of road we're going to pave, how many officers we're going to put on the street, what kind of response time we want to a fire call. And then there's those qualitative things, right? And it's a little more difficult to get our hands around those. It's kind of like a Norman Rockwell painting. We've all seen one, and most Americans, when they look at one, they agree, hey, I like that, I like that. What is that? Norman Rockwell, that's beautiful. But no one really knows why they like it, right? It's just that sense. You know it's right? Your discernment, your gut, your heart tells you it's right. And some of the things we're going to do are going to trend that direction. And if we can assign a reason and a resource and an allocation and a rationale, we establish that qualitative measure. 3 broad goals we're hearing and we're talking about now, and again, these are all conversational. We're not telling you, is I'm here from the public: cut taxes, okay, and that's different, but also aligned with lower the millage rate. So 1 and 2, how do we reduce the expenses? How do we reduce the burden? But number 3 is deliver services and improve the infrastructure, right? So you might think they're a little mutually exclusive. How do we cut taxes, reduce millage, and continue to deliver services? That's the goal. That's the magic that we're hoping to accomplish as a community. And again, to do that, it's going to take all of us to come around a shared set of goals and a belief that if we execute a certain set of strategies, what I call lead measures, right? I'm whining about it. A lead measure are the 3 things I'm going to do to lose weight again, right? I know not to eat, I know to exercise more, and drink more water, right? The lag measures, when I got on the scale today and realized I gained 10 pounds since Thanksgiving, right? So lag measures do me no good. That's just looking in the rearview going, wow, this is what I just did. I got here. We need to focus on those lead measures that drive the goals. Those are those performance measures that drive us where we want to be.
That's good. I won't weigh myself after
Don't do it.
Thanksgiving.
Don't do it. All right. So what are we doing so far? As we, obviously, we never stop thinking about the budget and what it's going to lead into. And I think finance will tell you it never ends. It rolls from budget to doing well, there's a new acronym now for the consolidated annual financial reporting. But and then it goes to the audits, and then we're back in this cycle forever. So what are we doing? We just completed 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, I gave staff a directive, and I said, let's partner together. I'd like every department, no department was excluded, to cut your budget by 20% as a starting point, but show us how you would do that without reducing services to our community. And we just got those presentations late last week from every department over 2 days. It's about 7 or 8 hours worth of presentations, and it's a great starting point, one that the executive team, Brian, Jason, and myself, are going to be digging into over the next 2 or 3 weeks and bringing back some reporting and looking at what some of these cuts and what some of these objectives really mean. But I'm very encouraged with staff taking this very seriously, realizing where we need to go and how we need to do that. We're going to seize opportunities. So I mentioned to you guys last week, we might look at a department consolidation. That was an opportunity that presented itself. We're remiss not to take advantage of those great opportunities, because I think we need to lead by example. In other words, the public's going to look to us and say, before you think about not paving my road or providing that service to us, what have you done internally to share the pain, is the comment I hear. What did you do to reduce what's happening at City Hall in terms of overhead, expense, all these things? We're going to do that exercise. We're going to open that up to everybody, because that's what needs to happen. So we're going to open the books. We're going to listen. That's why tonight is here, to start this listening to council and citizens. Then we're going to look at alternative delivery services, meaning it's real easy to erase. If you go on to the next line, what we're not doing, it's easy to blindly erase and say, okay, we got $1 million gap. I need to cut $1 million. Let's take the eraser right here. That's the easy way to do it, right? The easy way. What we want to do is say, if I need to remove or augment service delivery to still get to an end result, how do we do that without that interruption, right? So maybe I need to cut the money, doesn't mean we stop doing it. A great example is, I just looked over some documents today. For years and years, we've done summer camp programs. There was a pilot program last year to turn some of it over to the YMCA. We were losing, I think, conservatively, just from the raw numbers, $25,000 per session. More with that, with staff time, maybe closer to 50. There's an opportunity maybe to turn that over to the Y, get the same or even, great level of service, no disruption, same fee to the end user or public, robust summer camps, right? But now we are not paying that money because we're not good at maybe some certain tasks that a professional organization is, right? So my point is we're just going to look at things instead of just saying cut, cut, cut. People want these services. How do we deliver them? Because a lot of these are bedrock to the community. Is the city just pumps and pipes and police cars, or is it about building the greatest city on the face of the earth? What is that identity? Is it the events we have? Is it the sense of community connection, right? What's the role? And so we want to continue to fill those gaps and deliver things people have come to expect, love, and appreciate about Palm Bay, right? It's not just a city to be asphalt. There's more to community, in my opinion. We're not going to be unwilling to look inward first, as I just said, and we're doing that. We're going to look inward. That's, I think, what everyone expects us to, where to start. We're not planning on asking council to exceed the cap. We're not going to do it. We've been given orders. And the idea is to come in at the limit or less. And we're not going to act without feedback. Again, why we're here tonight, we're not even going to begin a philosophy, really. We've got ideas that we want to share with you, but we're not going to settle on that philosophy until we have a chance to talk with you and the community. So to sum it up and turn it over to the real pros who are going to keep us moving along through this next several months of budget. Cutting is easy. Again, we could take the eraser, but prioritizing is where it really gets hard. And that actually manifested itself today in City Manager Coffee, and I drew that out of some residents, and they said, well, we want infrastructure. And I said, well, what infrastructure? Knowing that we ostensibly have this, what I have said it in the past is likely, don't have exact numbers, but several $1 billion of deficit in infrastructure when we look across the whole panoply of operations the city does. You say infrastructure, what does that mean to you? And to someone it might be their road out front of their house, to someone else it might be Malabar, to someone else it might be stormwater, to someone else it might be, right? So how do we align those priorities to deliver? And that's where it gets difficult to do. So our strategic insight tells us that in regard to financial sustainability, that we can't operate within that 3%, right? It does come with trade-offs, that we likely will only be able to execute about 52% of our identified capital projects. Again, that's not unique to us, it's not unique to any city. We just got to understand there's a gap between identified projects and maximum what we'll be able to achieve in any one year or any multiple set of years. And that's okay if we all understand what we're prioritizing, right? There's an execution gap. We currently have about a $69 million deferred capital project over the next 4-year period in the general fund. And that does not include about $28 million, so about $100 million in total, for existing general fund projects that will require additional capital as we move through the next 4-year planning period. And those could be fire stations we're committed to seeing come out of the ground. They're in pre-planning stages. Other general fund priorities. Another great example is the fire trucks we bought last year. Now, we were able to pay for 2 of those right out of the gate. We did that with that raise in the millage. That was a justification, and that money was spent on purchasing those additional 2 fire engines. That was an incredible move, in my opinion, public safety and provision closed a huge gap. But if you remember on the other ones, we did that 3-year roll-up, interest-free, finance-free, to be able to get there in an invested strategic order over a 3 budget cycle, but 2-year window, because coincidentally, it takes 2 years for them to build a fire truck, right? So those are the kinds of things we talk about. And lastly, it's going to bring us all eventually to a decision point. Cutting revenue, lowering taxes, lowering ad valorem, outsourcing for fee-for-service models, again, maybe like this YMCA model I just talked about. It can seem really straightforward. Well, why don't we just rent that service out? Why don't we just, right? But creating those priorities is going to help align us around which, and I use this as a generic idea, of those 48% of projects or those activities and services that we provide or the community maybe want us to continue to provide, which ones do we prioritize and try to make sure that nothing goes unaddressed in our budget next year. And of course, those range from road maintenance, new facilities, or what services maybe should be fee recovery, right? May not be a great idea to try to figure out what the exact cost recovery is on a visit to our gym at our community center, but maybe if someone applies for a conditional use permit, that is something outside the scope, you're asking for a special condition, maybe we understand what that true cost is. Instead of $300, it's the true cost of service. Like every developer, when they go to an engineer, at least in my experience, and maybe it's different for people, but you don't get a flat fee rate of, hey, I'll do this whole project for $1,000. I work by the hour, this is the hourly cost. Those are all conversations we can have, you know, in planning. Should we have a agreement where we're charging by the hour? So we want to look at everything. So I'm saying nothing's withheld until we're told by you and the community that, no, we're looking down the wrong alley. So with that sort of lead off, we've got Jessica here to take us through the discussion points and, again, sort of the originating idea behind what we think is the budget model, the framework, and we want to hear feedback and your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Sorry.
Good evening. So tonight's goal for our department, we really only have two things: to talk about the planning process and then kick off the discussion for the FY27 budget goals. Last year, we talked a little bit about the evolution of budget. We met with you guys in April to talk about the strategy. So we're going to recap those high-level topics that you wanted focused on in FY26. But then now we're going to talk about how do we turn those focuses into actual budget goals, and that's what will go to our departments next month when we do the internal budget kickoff. So from start to finish, it's community engagement, it's council engagement. Your strategies, your goals are what we present to the departments, and those are the submissions that you're going to see come back to you later on for discussion. So a recap of last year, these are the high-level things you talked about. Infrastructure, public safety, but specifically vehicles and stations. You talked about stormwater and utilities, and also accountability. So last year we gave you this slide, and we told you in a perfect world, we'd like to kick off in January. We'd like to start now. Well, the future is now, so that's why we have tonight's presentation. From here, we're going to take your guidance, and at the first council meeting of February, we'll bring you an action item to actually set the budget goals for FY27. So tonight is just to start the discussion, to kind of get the wheels turning on where you want to go for FY27. From there, we'll kick it off to the departments. They'll have between February and May to go through our complete budget process. We do have a few changes that we'll talk about throughout tonight's presentation, but essentially that's their time frame for getting everything ready and prepared for submission. In June and July, we have our meetings, and we come back for an official workshop with you all to bring you the proposed information. And then August and September, if you need another workshop, and the actual public hearings will happen in that time frame. So with that said, I think budget should be an approachable topic. From council to citizens, everybody should understand where we're coming from with the budget. And overall, it's a 200-plus page document with a bunch of numbers. Most citizens don't read through it and understand the full concept of where do my tax dollars go? So I like it to be a relatable topic. Last year, we talked about home improvements and related it to all the departments. This year, we've heard lower tax rates, trim the fat. We've heard all of those comments. So this year, our theme and focus has been fiscal fitness. So let's get fiscal. That's where I'm at. And it's not just about trimming the fat. We can certainly make cuts. It's really about crunching the numbers to maximize our service. Is our budget going where we need it to go for the strategic goals that you're setting forward? Of course, we start with our core strength. You have all of your administrative departments, the city manager's office, city attorney's office, and legislative. They're our driving force for strategy and goals, sustainable growth, and compliance. For oversight and accountability, you have finance and procurement. And with human resources, you have regulations, recruiting and retention. We always want a stronger employee base. And protecting our core, employee wellness. Can't forget our essential muscle for public safety, our little weightlifting group, police and fire. They have focused in terms of their 20% cuts at really looking at cutting those administrative costs, but also where does it need to go to keep their services at the level that they're at. You heard from Deputy Chief that some of their crime rates have been down from year to year. They want to keep that. We don't want to see the crime rates go back up. We want to maintain that service that we have moving forward. Our endurance for infrastructure, our treadmill and cardio group. This is public works, stormwater, roads, and utilities. The focus is on steady and ongoing fiscal management so that we can maintain our infrastructure. It's pacing ourselves. What projects can we achieve now, and what projects should we be planning for and setting aside funding moving forward? The whole goal is to avoid workout burnout, meaning we're planning faster than we're saving the money for the projects. Agility for sustainable growth. This is our economic development and growth management group. It's all about being able to be dynamic and adaptive to what our community needs. It's really the catalyst for economic vitality in our area and also being able to be balanced and thoughtful growth. We don't want to have too much growth to where we're not able to keep up with the infrastructure side. And with economic development, they're doing more proactive efforts. And they want to really focus on keeping ahead of the game and bringing in the businesses that are going to help grow our tax base as well. And on the growth management side, you see the oversight of planning and zoning and also compliances on every governmental level. And one thing that they talked about a lot in their presentation was how can they realign themselves internally and focus on some of their revenue sources and realigning to make sure they're getting the most from the service that they provide to citizens. The importance of maintenance, safety, and security. So you have our maintenance crew, which is facilities. They are in charge of all of our buildings and facilities throughout the city. They have oversight of the new city facility development, but they also are so vital because they help reduce those emergency repair requests. If they are able to keep up with the proper maintenance of our facilities, we don't get with those emergency, the chiller's down, I need $150K in the middle of a budget year. Then you have our spotters, which is the building department. They're there to ensure the health and safety and welfare of all of our citizens through compliance and reviews. And IT, there are fitness trackers. They have their pulse on the technology needs and the cybersecurity of the entire city. And they also have been very innovative at looking at internal solutions for reducing our reliance on external vendors for some of our tech needs. Yoga, I love this one. Our recreation department, it's all about stretching our resources wisely and bending but not breaking the budget. I will say our recreation department has really been looking at the revenues coming in and aligning them with the expenditures that are going out and making the adjustments where needed. You saw a council item about a month ago come forward where they talked about the donations and the program fees that they have and really setting up their expenditures to align with the money coming in. So they're trying to find ways to balance that doesn't directly impact the general fund. So with all that said, that thought process, the role and mindset for our budget goals is we don't want the same thinking and the same results. How we've done budget in the past is not going to work for us how we're moving forward. So we want a new mindset and new results. So with FY27, we're really looking at establishing budget goals, whether it be 4 or 5, however many you guys determine, that have a direct and measurable outcome related to what the request is. You have a handout, and it was also provided over on the side if anybody needs a copy, of different budget type goals. They're not pigeonholed to one department, they're generic and broad, but they have direct measurable results. For instance, if you're going to talk about response times and say, I need X amount of more patrol officers or X amount of more equipment to reduce my response time, well, what's the target time and what's the target percentage of time that you're going to hit that? So if you say your target response time is 8 minutes from the call coming into dispatch to the first officer on scene, what percentage of time are you trying to hit that call? That's your target. That's your measurable outcome that would be related to that budgetary goal. So we do have a worksheet. And if you guys want to start talking through some ideas, we can do that tonight, or we can get it. This was supposed to be an interactive meeting. I have Post-its. We were going to let you guys start filling out ideas if you want to start spitballing ideas.
So what is the response time right now? What is the compared to the national response time? On both fire and police, yeah.
Good evening. So right now, we're averaging between 7:30, 7:45 by the time a citizen calls our comm center, our 911 call center, to the moment our officer arrives on scene. Now, nationally, it varies where you're at. Could be 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes, depend on the geographical area of the city, the municipality, metropolitan versus urban or rural type area. So all those factors come into place. But for us here in Palm Bay, we're hovering around 7:30, 7:38, 7:45, and we're striving to get that lower because we are also taking the averages between district to district, right? South End expansion is our new District 4, and this District 3, District 2, District 1, and then that's a combined average of all of those. But we do have averages for all of those districts as well.
Okay, so the average is 6:30 national?
Give or take. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I've seen in
Okay.
some of the literature that I've
All right. And here within our local municipalities, what's their average? Do we know?
I don't have that.
You
Yeah, I
don't
know.
have that?
Yeah, I can get that
Okay.
for you.
All right. Okay, I'd like to hear fire. national.
Good evening. Fire, our average response time right now is approximately 7.4 minutes.
7.4?
Yes, the average, when you look at the standard, it's right around 5. Some of this 7 is because of the south end of the city and getting down into that part of the city also. Plus, several of our stations have multiple calls at the same time, so that also has a reduction in response time.
So the national is 5, did you say?
Right about 5, I think it might be 5:30,
Okay.
5:30.
Okay, I'll say 5:30. So PD is a minute more nationally. Okay. I think Councilman Hammer had a question for both you and Chief Agela.
Do we know what the numbers are in Port St. Lucie? Because that would be our closest to the size of our city and whatnot. Because we are an extremely large city, so we don't need to be comparing with Melbourne or Cocoa or anywhere else, because we're probably 60 square miles bigger. So I would like to know the numbers from Port St. Lucie to see if we're comparable. Because, I mean, if we're doing as good or better, that would kind of put me in the wheelhouse of where I would want to be at.
I don't have that right now, but we can get that and get it sent over to you.
Okay, so that's part of the discussion I think that Jessica wanted to have here, have us engage, is try to figure that out, and how do we get to that target is what we're looking for. But, and in total transparency, yeah, Port St. Lucie may be a good guys, but I'm responsible for the lives here. So how we reduce it is what I'm interested in, how we go there. Because there's a lot of discussion that has to be made. I can tell you that I'm thinking of the guys at Station 2 right now, right? And the inadequate conditions that they're on. And then not to mention our growth, how we're gonna get to Station 6 and redo that, Station 8, Station 9. Those are the concerns. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, a question for Chief. The areas where we lack water, fire hydrants, does that take into account the response times in these challenging areas?
Well, those are some of the, excuse me, those are some of the areas where we have long response times. However, stations 2 and 5, right outside of fire headquarters, there's an entire development over there that has absolutely no hydrants. So that's hit and miss around the city. And we do have what they call water tenders that have extra water that are assigned to those areas to get down there. Those trucks would move a little slower, but the average apparatus, the engines, the trucks, those kind of things, that would not impact their response time. It's just the tenders because of the size and maneuverability.
But if there's a fire and there's not water available, is response time calculated by who's on site first, or is it the proper equipment there?
Call received till call on, till first unit on
First unit's
scene.
right. So there's no water, everyone could be standing around waiting for water. So 7-minute response time may not actually be accurate if there's like a structure fire in an area where there's no water.
That's correct, because if we go to work with a average engine company, we might get about 3-4 minutes of water firefighting time with the water that's currently capable, or currently in our apparatus.
Okay.
But you still have water on that response.
I'm sorry?
You would still have water in that initial response. To his argument, that tender that brings all the water, you won't have that equipment, but whoever responds will still have some type of firefighting tool, right?
You said 3
Some
minutes,
type of-
about 3
One of our
minutes worth.
apparatus has, on average, is about
3 minutes.
750 gallons
Okay.
of water. That does not give us long to fight the fire, especially if it's a well-involved fire. And the fire constantly doubles in size very rapidly. So depending on how it goes, I mean, we might be able to get into a room and content bread and butter kind of fire and get it knocked down. But if we get to something like we had last week with the fatalities, that would have taken a lot more than just a couple of trucks worth of water. Fortunately, there were hydrants in that area.
Copy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your question? Carrie?
So if you look at your handout, some of the sample budget goals we have, in terms of budget, infrastructure, maintenance, and improvement, you have a sample goal of maintain and upgrades roads, facilities, and utilities for long-term stability. Seems simple, but it's broad enough that it applies to multiple departments. An example KPIs that you could have is the percentage of streets and an acceptable pavement condition rating. We have the study that's going on here soon that might be an applicable KPI. A one-time completion rate for capital projects, that's something that our capital asset and program administrator, Sean Spillers, already tracks. So that's something he can help at a department level to set up as a KPI. And then we also have the percentage of preventative maintenance completed on schedule. Another topic with roads and road maintenance is one of the KPI examples was the average response time for filling a pothole. It's a hot topic with citizens. We see it all the time. That could be a measurable KPI. Do we have a target time frame for getting the potholes filled, and what percentage of time are we hitting that target? So those are just some examples of how we can take a broad range goal but have specific KPIs to certain departments. Any other questions?
Any questions, Council? I don't see
Yeah,
anybody.
that's all right, Mayor. Yeah, I guess a statement and some other examples for, speaking on paving. I think the density of the street should be something that should possibly be looked at if there's one or two houses on a street versus a house that's, 70% built out. I feel like 65% density would be a good factor, in my opinion. And then also, like, when the road paving program begins, I think the size of the units or the combination of units should be taken into account as well to reduce mobilization and demobilization cost.
And one thing we are working on with this budget year is leaning into our internal service departments, leading the way with some of our budget requests. For example, fleet and parks and facilities. So fleet is our hub for maintenance of the vehicles citywide. So with this year's budget process, fleet is going to lead the charge with budget requests related to vehicles citywide. They have their pulse on all of the top vehicles that really need to be replaced, and they're going to work to identify the top 25 or however many vehicles are slated for replacement. And then they'll work with those impacted departments to make sure that the request meets their needs in terms of equipment and build out and things like that. So it's a little bit of a change that you've seen from the past. We're hoping that this also cuts down on the number of requests you see, because sometimes you could have 200 to 300 of unfunded requests. That's just a long wish list. By going with fleet leading the way, you can really see what the true needs are citywide. And it's in terms of service life, mileage, hours run. There's a whole slew of different things that they're looking at to make that determination.
Yeah, if the numbers are there, right? But no guessing and no,
Yeah,
right.
correct.
The numbers, yeah.
And it's the same thing with parks and facilities. So traditionally in the past, departments would send whatever facilities related needs that they had to parks and facilities, and then they would have to rank all of those budget requests. Last year, it was over 150 budget requests just for facilities needs citywide. There's no way parks and facilities would ever be able to do those 150 requests. So it's really allowing them to go citywide. We know the areas that truly need maintenance and work so that we don't get hit with those bigger emergency needs down the way.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Carry on, ma'am.
So to put it out there, we always like to give you a heads up. This is our tentative timeline for this year's budget process. We do have some dates set aside tentatively for the public hearings down in September. We have to wait a little bit closer to those deadlines because we have to yield to the county and their meetings first. But right now, this is your time frame. Internally with the city, I think that should actually be February 18th. It's a Wednesday. Will be the budget kickoff here in the city. The goals that you establish at the February 5th meeting are what is going to be presented to the departments at that February 18th kickoff. We have May 2026 as a potential budget workshop timeframe for you all. At the beginning of May is the deadline for the departments to turn in all their budget requests. If you would like a workshop in May to just get an idea of what departments have submitted and where we're at, there won't be any numbers at that time, but we can at least show you the requests that's come in, and kind of like we did this past May of this is where we are, and get some more guidance on how to narrow it down for what we present to you later on in July. July 7th is the first official budget workshop. That's where you'll have your mid-year review and the proposed budget data. That's our tentative time frame if that date works for you all. And then July 29th is our target date to put out the proposed budget, and that's when we'll publish it. We have August 4th as an additional and final budget workshop if needed. Last year was the first year we had to do a second one. In prior years, we hadn't had them, so we do have it built in just in case. And then once we publish, October 23rd is our 30-day deadline to get the budget adoption and everything filed with the state. So do we have any other questions?
I don't see any other questions. Are you buzzing in? Go ahead, Councilman Hamlin.
I'd like to go on record of saying yes to May right now. I think any input, anything we can do extra to help this moving forward would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a given. We're gonna go. There's a lot to process this year, as you're well aware. So, and my reservation is, and it's warranted, keep in mind Councilman Langivin's not with us because he's supporting his wife having a child. But he needs to be part of this discussion. So I'm hopeful that February 20th we'll be able to get his concerns as well. But definitely I'm good for May. And I see Councilman Johnston wanting to weigh in.
Yes, Mayor, I'm good for May as well because based off what staff is saying, and thank you for the presentation. I'll get into the rest once you're completely done. But with May, that can be our chance to give clearer direction. So that way, if they're, going in this direction with a lot of the things they want to do, we, redirect them, no, this is where we want to go. And that gives them the whole month of June to revise, come back in July. And then in July, when they come back for us, they have the measurable outcomes they're looking to meet. So while it's going to be more surface level in May, us revising what we need to revise, come July, we'll be ready to go, full sale.
Copy that. Deputy Mayor? So here's a thought, ma'am. And last year, and for several years prior, right, we were talking about the rollback rate. We'll have to bust the cap just to get to the rollback rate. It did get here a year sooner, I think, than what we all anticipated. So we're going to be in the same position. Is that safe to say?
We don't have any of the numbers yet to know where that rollback rate will fall. I don't even know if we'll have it for the May workshop, but in general, you'll at least know where the total amount of the budget requests are at. So you know where the total they're asking for is, and then as soon as we get that information in, we can bring it back.
So I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case at this moment because of what the trend has been. So that is the area of concern, and as most of you know, our response times are pretty high. And so we're looking at a deficit in fire stations, again, I'll mention that, and how we do more with less. Now, if I'm tracking what was already presented is every department is actually dealing with or working with 20% less of last year. Am I correct? Or did I misunderstand that part of the presentation?
No, I think you understood that. What we asked to do is a thought exercise to start this process, and again, turning it into focus inside first before we look to change operations, cut any services at all, not saying we will, was how can we deliver the same level of service, really get to work, and show us how you do that by cutting 20% of your operations budget. And so that now has informed us, maybe some of the areas of efficiency we could have, or maybe if guided, once we present those ideas to council and the community, we may be told those are great ideas, let's execute, or hey, we don't like that. Let's look for revenue or change operations or priorities other places. And were you done? I just have one thing. I'll close one.
And will that be ready for our February meeting? Those 20%.
Not yet.
Each. Okay.
No.
Yeah, I wanted to try and see when we could start looking at that discussion because it all relates to it.
Yeah, probably mid-February. We're actually working to sort through those right now and really, drill deep. We saw the presentations, we took it all in. We had actually every department director was welcome. Most of us took up to sit in those meetings to understand what are my peers doing? How does my operations impact another department? So we took this on as a collective effort, not just an individualized race to attrition. So again, I think it was a robust effort. All staff was engaged. We heard what you said, and so, what we're also discussing, and we'll take this feedback now and moving in, is this hybrid-based budget is what we're calling it. I think priorities are essential, but we also heard zero-based budget. And so what I would like to see happen in a perfect world is, first, we establish our priorities. Instead of just resetting everything to zero, we might not be doing everything. Let's establish what the priorities are, we reset those to zero, and live within our means in terms of what we need to accomplish that strategic goal. So zero-based, driven by our priorities. So taking nothing for granted, in essence, is really how I'm starting to look at the budget. But again, before we get down that road, that's why we're here tonight, to invite you and the community into that conversation.
And I'm tracking that, sir. My whole thing was if we could get that in February, for, at least that'll have council to start looking at that.
You'll have it February, probably mid-February, I would assume.
Okay, all right. So Councilman Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Morton, thank you for acknowledging the zero-based budgeting, because that was the intent behind it. So I appreciate you saying that, and I'm definitely for what you're proposing. A few questions. Well, we faced a hiring freeze, which I was in support of. With this 20% staff budget reduction, did any of the staff, or did that include any employee reduction as well? And let me finish with the question first, because over the past year or 2 years, with a lot of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The times that it was brought to council for these, kind of out of nowhere changes or budget changes, a lot of it was staff driven, but we didn't have any measurables behind it. So I just wanted to ask that question in regards to seeing if you've seen that or what you've seen with your time as the city manager.
In terms of, I lost the question. I apologize.
Employee reduction.
Yep, so we're, changing the soft freeze we had, which we had a hiring committee to sort of validate every replacement or new hire. We're gonna continue the same philosophy we continued last year, notwithstanding public service, till we understand where we're going, but no new FTEs to the budget is my goal again for this year. We are initially taking the attrition approach, whereas vacancies occur. In fact, you're aware of some that I've, discussed in terms of one director retiring. Again, we're looking inward and saying, wait a minute, does it work? How can we fold that division in under an existing department head and save that resource allocation? How does that affect down the line? And so, yeah, we're definitely focused on that, as well as what does that look like? What is an appropriate complement? Part of what's going to inform us as to where we're staffing and staffing appropriately is going to be some of these KPIs. To your point, what's the metric for repaving? What's a pothole? What should our response time be, right? All those things. How quick should we react to a code enforcement complaint? And then we can, again, we're setting the priority. We're going to turn it to zero, and then understand not just in terms of resources, but personnel. Are we deployed appropriately? Over deployed? Under deployed? That'll be a big part of the analysis as moving into this year.
Yes, sir. And another thing to add to it is really just specifying wants and needs in regards to services. I think that's a big one as well, because a lot of things we tend to think, even when we think with our own household, we may want the steak and lobster, but we don't need the steak and lobster. So that's another area. And I know we spoke about it as a council and you and I individually in regards to the whole inspector general, or the whole concept of making sure we're constantly, like as you said, dosing ourselves, or you're the captain of the ship, and if you're constantly trying to look back and check every single thing, you're not going to be able to steer us towards the vision that you've shown that you're capable of doing. So with that, I don't know if you feel confident enough, not confident enough, but to speak more on the CPA position that you're looking at possibly doing, or where that may come into play with this as well.
Absolutely. I'm still putting the finishing touches around that, but to your point in our conversations, I only know what I know, right? And a lot of it we learn, and it's building trust and depth and knowledge of the organization. I definitely can see a role. I think that oversight and accountability is always good. I've told you I welcome it. I don't shy away from it, whether it's from the citizens, from you, or an outside source. I know there's lots of moving parts around that with some advisory task force where we're still working with, I'm going to get it wrong, it's 65 degrees north of 47. It's one of those latitudes. Still working on some of the JLAC audit technical provisions that were meant to be in place over time as well for oversight. Had another conversation today about some internal accounting review to make sure that we think we know where our numbers are, especially, I'll throw Kevin under the bus. Kevin, we haven't had the conversation yet, but bringing in some third-party oversight to help us get to the truth as quick as possible, get to the numbers as quick as possible, and move some of those lagging operations forward. So it goes back to what you're saying, accountability, accountability, accountability. I stand by my original, comments I made, which is let us get through this year if we can. Go ahead and program whatever you guys feel is appropriate. And let us, get the lay of the land and get some of this heavy lifting done, but always welcome oversight from anybody. I think that's essential to making this whole process work, is that in fact, thanked a citizen over the weekend for calling something out and said, hey, it's this kind of conversation, oversight, accountability, dialogue, we move it forward. We're not trying to make issues, we're trying to solve those issues. So I think it's good. It's good, and I welcome it from anywhere.
And I do want to, last thing, I do want to acknowledge on how you handled that as well, too. So thank you for that. With a citizen.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
transparency.
Yep.
Awesome.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I hit the buzzer when Kenny was, or Councilman Johnson was speaking, and Matt ended up touching on it. But, I think our early conversations that you and I had, just some briefings with staffing, I thought the hiring freeze was a brilliant idea. And, no one ever wants to have discussions about layoffs. And you had basically said, you forecasted there will be attrition and we will not refill those positions. And you've been right to date on that, and it continues to prove itself. So I remember that conversation, and it's been a year, almost, 10 months now, and what you predicted is happening. So I just want to give you credit for that vision.
I appreciate that, because I want to be clear too, well, and I'm sure you guys are in alignment, we don't do anything without the strength of our people. And we've got phenomenal people, and so, yep, tough decisions have to be made, but when they can make themselves, because I want people that are here to know we value what they do, we respect what they do. I want them to have a place. I think most people are here because they want to be here, they love serving this community, and so we're going to do everything we can to continue that and let, hopefully, to your point, let some things work out. So thank you.
I don't see any additional questions. Did you want to tee it back over to Jessica?
Absolutely,
or-
100%.
That was it. That was the wrap up. This is just another slide showing overall what happens between that February-July gap. So you see the internal city process of what's going on in terms of the departments developing their budgets. And then we also come back in that June-July timeframe, we have one-on-one department meetings with the city manager. So that May workshop is going to give us a little bit more guidance going into those meetings, so that when we come back to you in July, you'll have a more polished product of what that aligns with the goals that you've set forth. So that's it.
I don't see any additional questions. Is there anyone in the?
Yeah, I was just
Carry on.
saying, I would like to hear from the public, and then
Yeah,
I'll wrap
I
up with
was
some.
gonna-
Okay.
Yes, sir. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Please step forward.
Bill Batten, 586 Ocean Spray Street Southwest. I have 3 items to address after listening to the presentation. One, if the fire department can't put out fires, then maybe we shouldn't be increasing the population. So we make sure that we're building to the services that we can provide. Item number 2, number of homes on a street versus resident services. I've lived here long enough to know that that was part of the process that happened before. That say, well, this is the highest population, we should continue to put our resources where the highest population is. As a result, other areas went further and further degrading in their service availability that they were receiving. And I bring this up because if you look at Unit 32, it didn't get paved for over 30 years, get repaved any work in that area. As soon as the repaving went done, the scatter lots went from 1 a month to almost 20 a month. So if you invest back into the streets that are failing, you will still increase the city's revenue coming back in. So don't think, well, we can only support those that have the highest population. Item number 3. My fear is when I'm looking at stuff and potentially they're saying, well, we can't raise taxes over a 3% cap. Well, we can start using special assessment and mechanisms like that to bring revenue in. This is just strictly a request that if you take your ad valorem tax plus special assessment plus your citizen voted fees, that we do not exceed the maximum that would have been for the state of a millage rate of 10. Right. Kind of keep that as a background. I know we can't just jump to a 10 millage rate just because of guidelines. Right? And the last item was an IG. I personally am against an IG coming to the city of Palm Bay because that'll just be one more employee, and we're already spending 87% of our budget on employees. That's where it's going. That'd just be one more employee. On the other side of that, the IG just gives an easy out, that's my term, for staff and, for council and city manager, while the IG gave us a bill of health. So those are my inputs. I look forward, well, I don't look forward to budget meetings, but I look forward to seeing how this year is going to progress compared to previous years. It's going to be a little bit different, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? No? Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff, and Mr. Batten too for your public comments. You know, the 2026 preparation as a new council member was challenging. We got started super late, you know, after bringing Mr. Morton on, and just really thrilled that we're starting in January. And I remember the interview with Mr. Morton. I'm pretty sure he said in the interview he feels like Palm Bay was like in a $2 billion deficit. And I think if you were to ask that question to him today, the number is slightly higher. You know, so I don't think we're going to tax our way out of it. I don't think we're going to, you know, budget cut our way out of it. And some things I've discussed with Mr. Morton in the past, and some of it's already taken place, but I feel the city needs to sell its city surplus land. And I also strongly feel, like if you look at Viera, if you look at history in Broward County, Viera started as a government center, and then development came after that. And City of Palm Bay owns land in the compound. And I feel like some of our public facilities, like where Public Works is located, parks and recreation, like those are some prime internal areas in the city of Palm Bay that's valuable. And I think it would be prudent of the city to possibly look at a government center in the compound on the city-owned land, including a new fleet facility and a Public Works facility. And then some other conversations I've had in the past about like spending impact fee money, like really like to see an aggressive plan to spend this impact fee money. There's tons of money that's sitting there, especially in parks, that really needs to be start rolling out. And I think the nexus of how the impact fee designation is broken, I think it's broken by zip code. It's broken up too much. I think the nexus needs to be recalculated to a north and south quadrant, or at a minimum, at least a 4 section, not by zip code. I think we really limit ourselves in how the nexus is set up. So those are just some of the ideas that I had, and I'll close with that, Mayor.
So I just want to see if I'm listening correctly. The property that we have, you mentioned Public Works property. You're saying sell that property?
Yeah, no, like, so this week, Thursday night, we're going to be discussing the potential of what the third floor can possibly look like, and Building E, you know, and we're in violation with some regulatory things going on at the Public Works project, and one way to get us in compliance would be to move, you know, at least administration into the third floor of Building E. But, you know, that's a beautiful piece of property that could be
On a main corridor.
on a main corridor, commercial property. That, you know, in my opinion, could be sold for, you know, a valuable sum, and Public Works, we can use that, build a government center in the compound, which would also satisfy, if we're awarded the workforce grant, because it would create jobs in the compound, albeit city internal jobs, it still creates jobs.
Where would you put the fleet? The folks that are out there now, where would you put the fleet?
It would be a whole new, Public Works would just be built out there
Would be what now?
on the city-owned property in the compound, the northeast section
Oh,
of the compound.
relocate them.
Correct.
Oh, I'm tracking now.
Yeah.
I'm tracking. All right. Thank you. Anything else, gentlemen?
You might be able to answer this. When I was a city employee, I was told there was property on the Parkway that was saved for a future Public Works department. Is that true?
I am not aware of that. If someone has any different knowledge, but I do not believe we have property reserve. Now, we do have, to Deputy Mayor's point, a lot of surplus property, at least from the just book assessed value, which is not the market value. The preliminary math I did was about $17 million. So we got to just figure out what that delta is between assessed and market. But there is a lot of property out there.
Also, there is I want to say it's got 14 bays on Robert J. Conlon that's available right now. It's empty and ready to go, and I know for a fact it's up to code because I fixed it all.
So are you referring for like fleet?
For fleet, yes.
I actually told,
it is on
I told Mr. Morton about that building as
It's
well.
on Robert J. Conlon, it's ready to go and whatnot. I'm excited to hear any kind of updates from our level of service for police and fire, because I think that's going to be one of the big things Mr. Batten was talking about for us to be able to make decisions on things coming in, a great level of service for police, fire, and I'd like to see that for hospitals as well. Because one of the things that I'm always hearing is when people go to the ER and there's no beds. So I think that's something that we need to be able to factor in when we're making decisions on things moving forward. Another thing that I like to think about when we're talking about response time, this last fiscal year, we made a lot of sacrifices, but those sacrifices we made haven't been fulfilled yet. So we're still waiting on things to come in that we made our sacrifices for, hence fire stations, hence fire trucks. So I think our level of service is going to come up once we get those things that we sacrificed for in action. And like always, I would really like to see the job descriptions looked at, and we're spending a lot on consultants. If within somebody's job description, they're supposed to be having the knowledge of something that we're hiring a consultant for, I would like to see either some training there to where we're hiring less consultants, having more knowledgeable people in that. Because I do remember we did have engineers on staff. A lot of the things we're consulting for, we had people in-house at Public Works that actually designed these things, engineered these things, and this is all things that we did within our structure. And if we still have these people as their job description is to come up with these ideas and have the ability to do these things, I would definitely assess that. And I just wanted to thank you for coming to us this early with this. I think it's a great step forward. I think it's a great initiative to show that we mean business and we're transparent about everything that we're bringing forward. An opportunity for the community to come and discuss the things that they get so adamant about when it's time to make the votes. And that's it. I just want to thank everybody that's stepped up, all the departments having to do time other than their daily job to come up with things to help our community. Our community is asking for us to do something, and we are doing that initiative, that extra step to fulfill those needs that they're asking for so desperately. So I want to thank you, I want to thank your staff, and I want to thank all the departments for stepping up for this. Thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in support of surplus property, exploring that idea. The name of the game is real estate, so let's look at what we can do. And I'm trusting you on that, Mr. Moore, because that's your game right there. So, well, yeah, you're like a Swiss Army knife, sir, so keep it up. This may be more for the city attorney's office, but I would like to see how much, I guess, annually we're dispersing in regards to settlements with risk management. So that's more so on a different, well, I guess it ties to this. And then another thing for us to look at is outsourcing. Like if there is positions or things that we can outsource that we can save, that will be the last thing. And other than that, I'm good, sir.
I guess I'll just close this out. Councilman Hammer mentioned about our public safety initiative this past. I will say this, I've been around since early 90s, really got here in 88, decided to make Palm Bay my home back then. And in the 90s, they had vision boards, and we spoke about police, and I've said this time and time again. We spoke about firefighters, we spoke about parks and recs, and the community at large gave that thumbprint on which way we should go. So to the argument that we've invested in our public safety, quite frankly, we've been behind our public safety since the 80s. Quite frankly, we've been behind our public safety since the 90s, and now we're starting to make a little bit of stride. So I'm not one to release that pedal. I'm one that sees how we have already grown, and we're still in a deficit, and we are making strides. So all these equipments, these police vehicles, when I say equipment, to equip the law enforcement officer with their laptops, their bulletproof vests, their weapons, and the whole nine, that is not the same cost as it was in the 90s or even in the early 2000s. So for us to think about that infrastructure, and now we've got firefighters in Station 2 and in Station 6 that we're equipping them not at full capacity to do their jobs. And so, yes, we made a little bit of stride, but the future of this city depends on our public safety and how we protect our people. And so that's where I'm at. I like the idea of the zip codes, instead of the zip codes, separating those impact fees, perhaps north and south. I think that's going to be more of a legal question for our city attorney. I think we've been discussing that on a regional basis regarding the zip code, maybe condensing those with impact fees. And we always spoke about increasing those and how we could increase the public safety aspect of it. So I'm not sure where we're at that. I wanted to highlight that as well. I did highlight those stations I wanted to mention. The property sales, that would be effective with, Deputy Mayor said, Malabar Road property. That's a big commercial corridor. Interested to find out where else we have property and see how we could make that. But to Councilman Johnson's comment that your expertise in development and city management over all these years, I think, not that you're a certain type of knife, but I think you're gifted in your expertise on how you could get the best bang for our buck. So I think I'm really excited about that opportunity. As we've previously discussed, I'm excited about where we're going as a whole. My biggest concern is that public safety component, how that 3% cap is truly affecting the growth of our city in that regard. Because, and a lot of people might say, yeah, public safety gets enough. But I promise you this, to everyone that's listening, until you need somebody to take care of your mom and dad on a call or to take care of anything, you just can't relate. But when the rubber hits the road, we have men and women that at a moment's notice are there to protect you and to save your life. And that I have witnessed time and time again. And that's why I'm probably a little more passionate than most. But with that being said, we're going to conclude this. I'm going to adjourn this meeting. But I also wanted to congratulate Jade and Councilman Langevin for their successful child. Keep it up, Jade. I know you can do it. I'm grateful that your husband is next to your side. With that being said, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.